Schmidt, one of the reporters. Well, the markets are doing great. Trump. They're going to really go up if we do what we're doing. I mean, cut regulations tremendously. Sometimes, one thing they hadn't thought about at the Times, where they said I didn't really cut regulations as much. I heard that because I said it could have been a little slip up in terms of what I said. I meant for the time in office, 5 months and a couple of weeks, I think I've done more than anyone else. They may have taken it as more than anyone else, period. But I'm talking about for my time. I heard that Harry Truman was first, and then we beat him. These are approved by Congress. These are not just executive orders. On the executive orders, we cut regulations tremendously. By the way, I want regulations, but you have to get 9 different regulations, and you could never do anything. I've given the farmers back their farms. I've given the builders back their land to build houses and to build other things. The energy stuff is doing really well. We're going to be an exporter. We already are an exporter. We're doing well. I mean, the banks, you look at rules and regulations, you look at Dodd-Frank. Dodd-Frank is going to be, modified. And again, I want rules and regulations, but you don't want to choke, right? People can't get loans to buy a pizza parlor, to buy I saw out on the trail, people say, Mr. Trump, we've dealt with banks, my own bank, but they can't loan me anymore. I've never had a bad day with a bank, So we'll put, because of statutory, they can't loan to that kind of a business. And they're a good business to loan to. So I think we're really set to really go. Baker. As long as we're on the record, a lot of people are curious about your conversation with President Putin at dinner. Not surprising. But what did you all talk about? And Trump. So that dinner was a very long time planned dinner. And what it was an evening at the opera. It was a final night goodbye from Germany and from Chancellor Merkel. It was her dinner. It was, everybody knew about it. It was well known. So when we got there, it was with spouses. And when we got there, there were 1,000 media. You guys know. Were you guys there? Baker. No, it was Julie Hirschfeld Davis and Glenn Thrush. Trump. So it was tremendous media. And we took a picture of everybody, the wives and the leaders, and then the leaders and, numerous pictures outside on the river. And then everybody walked in to see the opera. Then the opera ended. Then we walked into a big room where they had dinner for not only the leaders. Lagarde was there. That's Christine Lagarde, the International Monetary Fund. Lagarde was there, who I think is terrific, and various others. You had the EU people there, people other than just the leaders, but quite a few people. I would say you have 20 times 2, so you had 40. And then you probably had another 10 or 15 people. You had Christine Lagarde. You had some others also. So I was seated next to the wife of Prime Minister Abe, who I think is a terrific guy, and she's a terrific woman, but she doesn't speak English. Haberman, like nothing, right? Like zero. Trump, like not even hello. Haberman, that must make for an awkward seating. Trump, well, it's hard because, you're sitting there for Haberman hours. Trump, so the dinner was probably 1 hour and 45 minutes. You had an opera, and then you had a cocktail party for the people at the opera, and then you had the leaders with the spouses and other leaders in Europe, and maybe other places go in. We sat at this very long table, which has to be at least 60, 65 people with room. Okay, it's a very big table, big room, but there was nothing secretive about it. It was like, that's where we're going. And I think it even said on the list, at the request of the German chancellor in Germany, it's going to be the opera, it's going to be cocktails, it's going to be dinner. I think the crowd thinned out for the dinner. It was the leaders primarily, but the leaders and Lagarde. Okay, so we're sitting at this massive table. And the wives are separated from their husbands, which sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but they did. It's always easier when they don't do it because you always have someone to talk to, right? And I was sitting next to the president of Argentina, his wife, nice woman, who speaks English, and the wife of Prime Minister of Japan's wife, Prime Minister Abe. Great relationship. So I'm sitting there. There's one interpreter for Japanese, because otherwise it would have been even tougher. But I enjoyed the evening with her, and she's really a lovely woman. And I enjoyed, the whole thing was good. And now Melania was sitting on the other side of the table, way down on the other end, very far away. She was sitting next to Putin and somebody else, I don't know. She was sitting next to Putin. Haberman, she had been the whole time. Trump. Yeah, she was sitting next to Putin. Baker, does she speak Russian at all? Trump. No, she speaks other languages. Anyway, she was sitting next to Putin and somebody else, and that's the way it is. So the meal was going. And toward dessert, I went down just to say hello to Melania. And while I was there, I said hello to Putin. Really, pleasantries more than anything else. It was not a long conversation, but it was, could be 15 minutes. Just talked about things, Actually, it was very interesting. We talked about adoption. Haberman, you did? Trump. Yeah, we talked about Russian adoption. Yeah, I always found that interesting. Because, he ended that years ago. And I actually talked about Russian adoption with him, which is interesting because it was part of the conversation that Don Jr. had in that meeting. And I've said, most other people, when they call up and say, by the way, we have information on your opponent, I think most politicians, I was just with a lot of people, they said, who wouldn't have taken a meeting like that? They just said, Haberman, the senators downstairs, Trump. A lot of them, they said, who wouldn't have taken a meeting like that? Baker, you asked them about it at lunch? Trump, nah. A couple of them, now that was before Russia was hot, don't forget. Russia wasn't hot then. That was almost a year and a half ago. It wasn't like it is, radioactive then. Russia was Russia. Haberman, then can I ask you, Baker, sorry to interrupt. The email, though, said something I thought was really interesting, and I wonder what you thought of it. It said, this, quote, is part of Russia and its government support of Mr. Trump, end quote. So whatever actually happened at the meeting, Trump, well, I never saw the email. I never saw the email until now, Baker, right, but now you have. So what do you interpret that to mean now that you have seen it? Trump. Well, Hillary did the reset. Somebody was saying today, and then I read where Hillary Clinton was dying to get back with Russia. Her husband made a speech, got $500,000 while she was Secretary of State. She did the uranium deal, such a horrible thing, while she was Secretary of State, and got a lot of money. She was opposing sanctions. She was totally opposed to any sanctions for Russia. Baker, when was that? Haberman, do you remember when that was? I don't remember that. Trump, I just saw it. She was opposed to sanctions, strongly opposed to sanctions on Russia. Haberman, this is post-Crimea, I'm assuming. Is that what we should be talking about? Trump, I don't really know. But in that time, and don't forget, Crimea was given away during Obama, not during Trump. In fact, I was on one of the shows. I said they're exactly right. They didn't have it as it exactly, but this Crimea was gone during the Obama administration. And he allowed it to get away. He can talk tough all he wants. In the meantime, he talked tough to North Korea. And he didn't talk tough to North Korea. We have a big problem with North Korea. Big, big, big. You look at all the things. You look at the line in the sand, the red line in the sand in Syria. He didn't do the shot. I did the shot. Had he done that shot, he wouldn't have had he done something dramatic, because if you remember, they had a tremendous gas attack after he made that statement, much bigger than the one they had with me. Haberman, it was sarin as well. Trump, sarin. And tremendous numbers of people were killed, young people, children, and he didn't do anything. That was a famous weekend where they were all asking him to do it. They thought they had it. And then not easy to do, I will say this, because when I had to make that decision, I was with the president of China and General Mattis. He said, we're locked and loaded, sir. And I'm saying, look, you're killing people. Haberman, yes. Trump, you hate it. It's tough. Obama, I can't understand it in a way, but some things you have to do. But it's a tough decision to make. Baker, I do want to come out on the email now that you've seen that email that said Russia's government. I mean, how did you interpret it that way? Trump, well, I thought originally it might have had to do something with the payment by Russia of the DNC. Somewhere I heard that. Like it was an illegal act done by the DNC or the Democrats. That's what I had heard. Now, I don't know where I heard it, but I had heard that it had something to do with the illegal acts with respect to the DNC. Now, when you look at the kind of stuff that came out, that was some pretty horrific things come out of that. But that's what I had heard. But I don't know what it means. All I know is this. When somebody calls up and they say, we have look, what they did to me with Russia, and it was totally phony stuff. Haberman, which one? Schmidt, the dossier. Trump, the dossier. Haberman, oh, the dossier. Yeah, dossier. Trump. Now, that was totally made up stuff. And in fact, that guy's being sued by somebody. I don't know who. And he's dying with the lawsuit. I know a lot about these guys. They're phony guys. They make up whatever they want. Just not my thing. Plus, I have witnesses because I went there with a group of people. I went there with Phil Ruffin. Haberman. Oh, I didn't know that. Trump. I had a group of bodyguards, including Keith Schiller. Haberman. Keith was there, right? Trump. Keith was there. He said, what kind of crap is this? I went there for one day for the Miss Universe contest. I turned around, I went back. It was so disgraceful. It was so disgraceful. When Comey brought the dossier stuff to me, I said, this is really made up junk. I didn't think about anything. I just thought about, man, this is such a phony deal. Haberman, you said that to him? Trump, yeah, don't forget. I said, honestly, it was so wrong. And they didn't know I was just there for a very short period of time. It was so wrong. I was with groups of people. It was so wrong that I didn't think about motive. I didn't know what to think other than this is really phony stuff. It's so wrong. Schmidt, why do you think he shared it? Trump, I think he shared it so that I would, because the other three people left and he showed it to me. So anyway, in my opinion, he shared it so that I would think he had it out there. Schmidt, as leverage? Trump, yeah, I think so. In retrospect, when he wrote me the letter, he said, you have every right to fire me, blah, 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 right? He said, you have every right to fire me. I said, that's a very strange, over the years, I've hired a lot of people. I've fired a lot of people. Nobody has ever written me a letter back that you have right to fire me. They're talking about Comey. Baker, do you think in hindsight, because of what's happened since then, Trump? Comey wrote a letter. Haberman, which letter? Schmidt, to you? To the FBI staff or to you? Trump. I thought it was to me, right? Baker, I think he wrote it to the staff saying, Trump. It might have been. Baker, that, quote, the president has every right to fire me, end quote. Trump, it might have been. It was just a very strange letter to say that. Baker, but do you think in hindsight, given that, Trump, what was the purpose in repeating that? Baker, do you think what's given that, Trump, do you understand what I mean? Why would somebody say he has every right to fire me, blah, blah, blah? Why wouldn't you just say, hey, I've retired? Trump. It was a lot of people have commented that. Baker, given what's happened since then, though, was it a political mistake to have fired him, given what's happened? Trump, I think I did a great thing for the American people. Schmidt, but look at the headache it's caused, Trump, it's okay. I have headaches. That's what I have. I have headaches. But you know what? I think I did a great thing for the American people. Haberman, do you wish you had done it on day one when you got in? Because I honestly had assumed that if you were going to do it, that's when you would do it. Trump, well, it could have been. I feel like it was very dishonest when he wouldn't say what he knew he said to the public. I thought that was very honest. And I thought that he did that for the reason I just said. Schmidt, what do you understand to be the four corners of what Mueller can look at if he stepped Trump? I don't know. Nobody has contacted me about anything because I've done nothing wrong. A special counsel should never have been appointed in this case. Baker, can we put that on the record? Trump. Because so far, yeah, you can put it down. Schmidt, was that Jeff Sessions' mistake or Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein's mistake? Trump. Look, Sessions gets the job. Right after he gets the job, he recuses himself. Baker, was that a mistake? Trump. Well, Sessions should have never recused himself. And if he was going to recuse himself, he should have told me before he took the job, and I would have picked somebody else. See, Trump thinks the Attorney General is his personal lawyer or something.
No, I mean, he just admits it. He just comes out and admits that if he hadn't, the only reason Sessions was there was to give him a pass on whatever the Russian crap was going to come.
Haberman.
I mean, he knows it.
Haberman, he gave you no heads up at all in any sense? Trump, 0. So Jeff Sessions takes the job, gets into the job, recuses himself. I then have, which frankly I think is very unfair to the president, how do you take a job and then recuse yourself? If he would have recused himself before the job, I would have said, thanks, Jeff, but I can't, I'm not going to take you. It's extremely unfair, and that's a mild word to the president. So he recuses himself. I then end up with a second man who's a deputy. Haberman, Rosenstein, Trump. Who's he? And Jeff hardly knew. He's from Baltimore.